Hello and welcome to this episode, How to Overcome Performance Anxiety. Wherever you are watching or listening to this episode, go ahead and subscribe to either my channel on YouTube or wherever you're listening to it in a podcast. You can like and leave a comment, and that really helps others find this information if they need it. So I imagine if you are listening to this, you have some experience with performance anxiety or you know somebody who does. And there's a lot of different forms of anxiety. There's a lot of different ways different reasons why anxiety happens. There's different solutions or methods to work with anxiety. I'm going to talk about it from a little more of an energetic and more soulful approach on how to look or work with anxiety. So, the performance anxiety specifically, and to break that down, here are some different ways performance anxiety might show up for somebody. Number one is public speaking, and that might be, getting up to perform on a stage. It might be in a classroom. It might be just in a work setting, having to show up and speak in front of people. There can also be literally performing on stage or in front of others, and that's not limited to speaking. It can be music, it can be singing, it can be some form of having to show up and present in some ways. It can be reading a script or reading a book or anything on stage in front of people. Performance anxiety can also show up simply around rising to an occasion and the feeling of I have to show up. I have to show up. I have to present. I have to look a certain way. I have to show up and present and rise to an occasion. So sometimes it's the feeling of having, a big event, a graduation, or maybe it's a wedding, and there is no speaking, but there's the sense of just being in front of people and having to rise from within to show up. Also, job performance is another form of performance anxiety, and how well you might work in your job, and the pressure of evaluation of that. Performance anxiety can also show up around being authentic, showing up authentically, again, in front of people. And that what would come with that is a level of vulnerability or fear of showing true self in some way. So, what can be underneath some of these aspects of performance anxieties is the vulnerability of showing a true part of yourself, coupled with a rise from within of old ingrained fears about being seen. So if there's some deeper fear about, again, showing up, being seen, and showing authenticity, and you can sort of trace that back in time, some of those ingrained, unprocessed fears could be bubbling up in that moment. There also can be an actual fear of persecution, which sounds very intense, maybe over the top in some cases. But what happens for us from the energetic perspective is that there can be a split-second regression into a subconscious fear that may or may not make sense to our childhood experience. And in that moment, in that regressed moment, we are not present. We have lost connection with the present moment and our body. There's a level of disassociation, a fear, sometimes an altered state. Sometimes people will say, I feel like I left my body when I had to get up and perform or right before I needed to speak. These can be indications that there is old, again, old experiences in the body that feels like a persecution. It feels like someone took me down when I got to get up and go for something in my life. And that, whether that, happened in this lifetime or whether there's some cellular memory, soulful memory, history in the body that says that happened, there's somewhat of an interception of a neural pathway. in that moment. And so somebody will get to the end of that neural pathway, and that's where it ended in their cellular memory. And so what they need to do is carve a new neural pathway in that moment. They need to rewrite the story. So I'm going to come back to this portion because there is some healing here in the moment. So there can also be old expectations of pressure that you have to keep going, you have to strive, you need to be perfect and do a good job in order to be good, loved, accepted, outstanding, or liked. And this can affect things like job performance or having to achieve something. For some people, it's doing for, in college, doing a final exam and having a performance anxiety because there's so much pressure around doing good, being accepted, that sense of I need to be able to succeed because there's so much pressure involved. And that is a form of performance anxiety. So again, these are pointing to old stories that are living within our cellular body. And in my work, it's our energy body. So essentially, the energetic system in the body carries information. It's within the chakra system, it's within the soul's spiritual DNA. We've lived a lot of lifetimes, and we come into this life with information. It imprints upon our physical form, and our cells carry that information. So in this moment, when there is some level of performance anxiety, we're not actually present to the moment. We're present to the story that's living in the energetic system. And sometimes that story could have been traumatic. Keeping in mind that trauma is relative. It's relative to the person who's having the experience. So, for example, being laughed at school could be shrugged off by one child, or for another child, it can be incredibly traumatic. So two children having the same experience, one walks away, whatever, I don't care what you think. The other one takes it in very deeply, maybe says in the moment, I don't care what you think. I don't, whatever, but it hits them. They have a different imprint in the experience. That's just an example of how we might be experiencing a trauma in the body that, may not have been necessarily processed back then. The story can also include an accumulation of expectations, belief systems, pressure, from others to be able to survive in the systems that we're raised in. And so that might mean in order to survive in this family, in life, in school, in your job, in, the world ahead of you, if we say this to a small child, you have to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And so there may be a pressure to be able to do X, Y, and Z perfectly or perform well at it in order to survive or feel safe or feel a sense of belonging or acceptance or love or whatever. So in this moment, anchoring back, performance anxiety is a recall of an old story. And the story isn't conscious fully. It may not be cognitive in that moment. It may be a deep energetic experience that's happening in a split second, past history that surfaces in that moment. And in that moment where the individual is supposed to be performing, meaning showing up, rising to the occasion, having to speak, use their voice, you show up in their authenticity, practice what they rehearsed, really do the things they know out, not in front of people they can do well. And in that moment, we're not able to be present in that moment. Instead, the story takes over, the imprint, the visceral experience, the nervous system response to that story. And so we need to regain presence in that moment. We need to come present. And present means that in this moment, in the now, I am connected to my soul and my body. My soul and my body have unified in this moment, and I feel my body and I am present in this moment. So I'm going to offer you a practice on what you can do to gain presence in the moment before performing, or sometimes when you're in the middle of it. This can help. It depends on the situation. So the first thing to keep in mind is we've got to go low in the body. We have to focus lower on the feet and on the legs in the body, because anxiety is a rising experience. It's a very visceral and kinesthetic experience in the body. It can come with sweats and heart palpitations and sometimes dizziness, or, there may be other symptoms. Sometimes there's legs shaking or quivers, or the voice is chattering, or mouth is going dry. Lots of different symptoms can happen. And they can happen even when the mind is saying, wait, why am I, I'm okay in this moment. Why am I having this visceral response? Keeping in mind, there is a story that the nervous system is recalling in that moment. So focus low in the body. So start with the feet. So start to feel your feet on the earth beneath you. And what I like to do to accentuate that feeling is imagine that roots are growing from my feet. So not only are my feet on the earth, but they are rooted. I am deeply rooting from the soles of my feet into the earth. And I might spend 5 to 10 breaths just on that, just on the roots growing from the soles of my feet, till I get to the point where I can really feel that there's a visceral sort of vibratory feeling going on in the soles of my feet as they make contact with the earth. If it's possible to take off your shoes, fantastic. Do that. If you can't, because you're in a workplace or you actually are performing, it's okay. Just visualize, sense, feel. Stay connected to the roots growing from the soles of your feet. Then you can start to move your awareness to your feet. Again, keeping in mind that the roots are still there. And when you bring your awareness to your feet, start to trace your foot with your breath and your awareness. Imagine feeling, or sensing or seeing, even though you're up in your, you're up here, you're not looking down at your feet, what the veins look like, what the crevices, the wrinkles, the, lines look like on the soles of the feet, what they look like at the top of the feet, the toes, your toenails, the circumference of your foot. Start to breathe until you can really feel your awareness wrap around your feet. Then you can start to move your awareness up into your ankles and do the same. Trace the circumference of your ankle, maybe the little bony part of your ankle, the Achilles heel, coming up again, ankle, just tracing it all the way around, keeping your breath and your awareness there until you can feel your presence and your embodiment here in your ankles, your feet, and your roots. And then following it up, you can start to move up your legs. Feel the front side, your shin bones, feel your calf muscles, feel all the way around. Maybe you feel the indentations of your legs up to your knees, the femur bone where it meets the muscle. Start to trace all the way around on both feet, on both legs. Focus on your legs. Notice everything about them. And if there's in any way a disability occurring around legs or feet, you can still bring presence to wherever in your body you can access in your mind's eye. You can even visualize that there still are roots growing from wherever you have connection, or where your physical body is. You can still imagine, sense, or feel those roots. Now, let's say you get up to your knees and you start to disassociate. Let's say you get up to your knees and I can't stay present. I feel overwhelmed. I'm starting to, disconnect from this present moment. I can't stay present. And we go back down. We go back down to the shin bones, back down to the ankles, through the calves and down to the ankles, into the heel, into the feet, and back down into your roots. And we just trace that pathway as far as we go, as far as you go. So from the roots to the feet, to the ankles, to the shin bones and calves, tracing your legs all the way back up. And if it feels like, okay, I can go a little further right now, then you start to go through the knees, again, tracing it all, and find your way through your awareness up through your legs, and you go as high as you can go. And if it gets to the point where you can't feel your presence, then you go back down. You trace all the way back down. And you may need to do it a few times, back down to the soles of the feet, back up, until your nervous system, your brain, your energy body can track that I have pathways here. There are meridians, there's energetic lines through the lower half of my body that I lost consciousness in, I lost presence in, and I am rewriting the story here. In this moment, I am here, I am okay, I am well, I am alive, everything is okay. So you can, as you're moving your awareness through your legs and through your feet and up, you can even say those words. I am okay. I am here. Everything's okay. I am safe. I am alive. I am breathing. I am well. And we're starting to send the signals to the lower body that is carrying a different kind of consciousness, a regressed consciousness, one that was carrying a story that you were not safe in this moment. Danger was coming. Things were not going to be okay. In this moment, while you've gotten to the end of your neural pathway that said stop here, you are now starting to write a new story that says, in this moment, while I'm at this job, while I'm about to get on stage, while I have to talk in front of a group, while I have to rise to the occasion, I am okay. And it allows for us to imprint in our body a new sense. Now, let's say you go through that experience and it feels like, I did this and I feel like I got through it. Was it 100%? No. Was I fully peaceful? No. Did my mouth water get dry and I kind of spaced out, or I sweated, my body sweat? Did all of those things happen? Possibly. But what happens is the next time we go to return to some level of performance in that broad spectrum of the term, it was a little easier. Something shifted. You were able to go a little further. And so maybe the next time around, you have to repeat this same exercise of practicing again, soles of the feet, roots to the earth, feeling your feet fully, top to bottom, everywhere, rising to the ankles, breathing. I am here. I am safe. I am okay. It's okay. Moving up through the legs, the shin bones, the calves, etc. So you keep breathing your presence into this area of your body so that your soul can connect to your body and rewrite the story that you can't, because you can. And you can do it with more realness, more authenticity, more grounding, more truth, more connection to yourself. And keep in mind one more thing, which is that sometimes the performance anxiety means we're trying something new. You are breaking a glass ceiling. You are going an extra mile beyond where your comfort zone was. You are shifting, changing, and rewriting neural pathways by trailblazing in some way that maybe others have done, but you haven't walked that path yet. And so sometimes the shaking of that anxiety is saying, hey, you are growing in this moment. You are expanding in this moment. You are building resources in this moment. You are having an experience in this moment that is new, and it's not wrong and it's not bad. It's actually good. And you get to breathe through your presence in that moment. You get to receive it in this moment, that growth. So this exercise can also be really beneficial when you are imprinting a new experience in your body and in your life as you go beyond your limitations, like where your limitations were. You are expanding, you are evolving, you are growing in that moment, and you get to feel your legs and feel your feet. And so allow that practice. You can take it up as high as you want. I stopped at the knees, go up through, keep going until you feel, it can go all the way up to the crown of your head, until you feel a deep sense of presence inside your body and that you are here, you are safe, it's okay. You are breathing in this moment, a new imprint. You are okay. So I hope this practice helps you the next time you are called to rise from within, to achieve something, to perform something, to speak something, to show up in some way. I do hope that this practice supports you. You can take it with you whenever you need it. Thank you for being here. I hope this is beneficial, and I'll see you soon.